Most people don't fear tomorrow. They fear losing control of today. They fear the silence between their thoughts. They fear the weight of expectations, the uncertainty that crawls into the mind at night, the question that whispers, "What if I fail?" But here's the truth nobody wants to say out loud. Tomorrow is not the enemy. Tomorrow has never hurt you. Tomorrow has never stopped you. It is the fear you carry right now that chains your hands, slows your steps, and convinces you to stay smaller than who you were meant to become. You're not fighting the future, you're fighting your own doubts about whether you're strong enough to face it. And the moment you understand that, everything changes. Think about it. Every great moment of your life, every breakthrough, every victory, every time you surprised yourself came from a moment when you stopped worrying about what was going to happen next and focused on what you could do right now. Worry didn't bring you progress. Courage did. Action did. A single decision did. The problem is most people spend their lives trapped in their heads, rehearsing disasters that never happen. They burn their energy imagining losses instead of building wins. They waste entire days trying to predict a future they haven't even started working toward. And while they're busy worrying, life keeps moving. Opportunities pass, confidence slips, dreams fade quietly in the background. But not you, not anymore, because today you learn a truth that can rewrite the way you think, the way you live, the way you show up in the world. The present moment is your only battlefield. This is where strength is built. This is where fear is destroyed. This is where you become unstoppable, not by controlling tomorrow, but by conquering the next breath, the next step, the next tiny action that pulls you forward. Imagine for a second that every worry, every anxious thought, every what if is a thief trying to rob you of the greatness that's already inside you, and every time you focus on fear, you hand over another piece of your potential. But when you say, "No, today I fight," suddenly tomorrow loses its power over you. Suddenly the pressure breaks. Suddenly your mind clears, your heart steadies, and your strength returns. You were not born to live in anticipation of problems. You were born to rise in the face of them. You were built for storms. You were designed to grow through struggle. You have survived moments you once thought would break you, and yet here you stand, breathing, fighting, learning, evolving. That alone is proof that you are capable of far more than your fears allow you to believe. So let this moment be the spark. Let this be the line in the sand where you say, "Enough. Enough overthinking. Enough delaying. Enough surrendering your power to a day that hasn't even arrived. Today is where your life changes. Today is where your story shifts. Win today, and tomorrow will have no choice but to bow to you." Fear of the future is one of the greatest illusions the mind creates. It feels real. It feels heavy. It feels urgent. But it's nothing more than a projection of your imagination. The future hasn't happened yet. It has no power, no shape, no certainty until you give it one. Yet most people live as if tomorrow is a guaranteed threat, as if something dark and uncontrollable is waiting just beyond the horizon. They brace for disasters that never come. They stress over outcomes that never appear. And they don't realize they're fighting shadows, not reality. The human brain is wired for survival, not happiness. It automatically scans for danger, tries to predict threats, and assumes the worst because thousands of years ago, that instinct kept us alive. Today, that same instinct keeps us anxious. The brain exaggerates problems. It magnifies doubts. It turns small uncertainties into overwhelming storms. And if you don't control your mind will control you. That's why fear of the future feels so powerful, because your brain is trying to protect you. But protection becomes limitation when it stops you from living boldly. You aren't meant to hide. You aren't meant to shrink. You aren't meant to play small because your mind is stuck in survival mode. You are built to grow, to rise, to adapt, to create, to transform. Fear might be instinct, but courage is a choice. The deeper truth is this: you don't fear the future, you fear your ability to handle it. That fear comes from broken confidence, past failures, old wounds, and stories you've repeated to yourself for so long that they feel like facts. But they are not facts. They are memories wearing masks. They do not define you. They do not predict what's coming next. They only have power if you keep feeding them. Every person who has achieved greatness has battled the same fear. Every athlete stepping into the arena felt it. Every entrepreneur risking everything felt it. Every student starting a new journey felt it. Fear of the future is universal, but what separates champions from the average is this: champions don't wait for certainty. They create it. They don't fear the unknown. They walk into it. They trust themselves more than they trust the fear. You must understand something. Life-changing fear is not a stop sign. Fear is a signal. It tells you where your growth is. It reveals what matters. It shows you the path you're meant to walk. Where fear appears, destiny is close. That's why your biggest dreams feel so intimidating, because they're testing whether you're truly ready to rise. But here's the breakthrough. You have survived every difficult day you thought you wouldn't. You've handled struggles you never prepared for. You stood your ground in moments that felt impossible. This is proof, undeniable proof, that you can handle whatever tomorrow brings. The future isn't something to fear. It's something to shape. It's clay in your hands, waiting for your courage, your discipline, your decisions. So release the illusion. Stop letting your imagination scare you. Lift your head, straighten your back, and remember who you are. You are stronger than your fear. You are smarter than your doubt. You are capable beyond measure. The future isn't a threat. It's your next victory waiting to happen. Worry is deceptive. It pretends to be a strategy. It pretends to be preparation. It whispers, if you think about every possibility, you'll be safe. It makes you feel like you're doing something important, something responsible, something protective. But in reality, worry is nothing but mental quicksand. The harder you struggle in it, the deeper you sink. It consumes your energy without giving you a single solution. It gives you tension, not answers. Stress, not clarity. Exhaustion, not progress. Worry feels powerful because it keeps your mind busy. It gives the illusion of effort, the illusion of control. You feel like you're preparing, analyzing, predicting, but you're not moving. You're not building, you're not acting, you're just spinning in circles inside your own head, confusing movement with momentum. And that's the trap. Your brain rewards rumination with a false sense of safety. It believes that by imagining every worst-case scenario, you're protecting yourself. But here's the truth. No amount of worrying has ever prevented a problem. No amount of anxiety has ever solved one. You could spend days thinking, stressing, overanalyzing, and still end up in the same place, stuck, drained, and unprepared. The people who win in life are not the ones who think the most. They're the ones who act. They don't waste their mental energy on imaginary crises. They don't sit around forecasting failure. They move. They take steps. They build momentum. They take risks, make decisions, and adapt on the go. Action gives them clarity. Worry gives them nothing. Think back to your own life. How many times have you stayed awake at night rehearsing problems that never happened? How many moments have you missed because you were too busy stressing about the next one? How many opportunities slipped by simply because you were trapped in overthinking instead of stepping forward? Worry steals the life you have while pretending to protect the life you want. But once you see worry for what it truly is, empty mental noise, you become free. You begin to understand that the only real power you have exists in your actions, not your anxieties. You start realizing that a single bold move creates more change than a month of worrying ever could. The most successful people in the world aren't fearless. They just refuse to let fear be their decision maker. They know the truth. Movement breaks fear. Action destroys doubt. Progress silences panic. Every time you choose action over worry, you strengthen the muscle of courage. Every time you take one small step forward, your confidence grows. And with each step, tomorrow becomes less intimidating because you're proving to yourself that you are capable, adaptable, and resilient. Stop giving worry the respect of your time. Stop letting your mind convince you that stress is productivity. You weren't born to overthink. You were born to overcome. You were born to create, build, rise, conquer. The life you want won't come from fear-driven thinking. It will come from fearless doing. So take back your power. Step out of your head and into your life. Worry may feel powerful, but it will never make you powerful. Your actions will, your decisions will, your courage will. And the moment you choose movement over mental chaos, you begin to shape a future worth walking into. There comes a moment in every person's life where the battle is no longer about circumstances, no longer about opportunities, no longer about the world outside, but about the identity living inside. Because your actions will never rise above the story you tell yourself. If you believe you are weak, every challenge will feel impossible. If you believe you are fragile, every obstacle will feel dangerous. If you believe you are a worrier, your mind will always look for the next thing to fear. That is the truth. Most people never learn. Your identity creates your reality. Worry isn't just a habit. It's an identity you've practiced. And every time you let fear lead, you reinforce the belief that you are someone who must be afraid. But that is not who you were born to be. That is not who your struggle shaped you into. That is not who your victories, your scars, your growth have prepared you to become. Inside you is a warrior. Someone who has survived storms that others never saw. Someone who has walked through pain that would have broken a weaker spirit. Someone who has been disappointed, betrayed, challenged, doubted, and still found a way to stand up again. You don't gain that kind of strength by being fragile. You gain it by fighting. You gain it by enduring. You gain it by refusing to give up when quitting would have been easier. That is what warriors are made of, not perfection, but persistence. The shift begins when you stop asking, "What if I fail?" and start declaring, "Even if I fall, I rise." When you stop thinking, "I don't know what will happen," and start saying, "Whatever happens, I will handle it." When you stop seeing yourself as someone who reacts to life and start seeing yourself as someone who shapes it. A warrior waits for things to go wrong. A warrior prepares to make things right. A warrior freezes in uncertainty. A warrior steps into it with purpose. A warrior doubts their strength. A warrior builds it day by day. True transformation isn't about erasing fear. It's about adopting an identity strong enough to walk forward with fear still present. A warrior doesn't need perfect confidence. They only need the belief that they are capable of facing whatever stands in their way. And here's the most freeing truth of all. Identity is a choice, not a destiny, not a label someone gave you, not a personality set in stone. A choice. Every action you take becomes a vote for the person you want to become. Every moment you push through fear, you're casting a vote for the warrior. Every moment you choose courage over comfort, you're strengthening that identity. Every time you take action when your mind says worry, you reinforce a new truth. I am not controlled by fear. I am built for greatness. Say it with conviction. Say it until it becomes the voice in your head. I am built for storms. I don't fear tomorrow. I shape it. When you embrace that identity, life shifts, doors open, strength activates, and tomorrow is no longer a threat. It becomes your territory to conquer. You said life never demands that you conquer an entire future. It never asks you to solve every problem at once. It never expects you to carry 10 years of responsibility on your shoulders in one moment. That weight, the weight that crushes your spirit, comes from your mind, not your reality. The truth is simple. You only ever have to win the next 10 minutes. That's it. 10 minutes of courage, 10 minutes of focus, 10 minutes of action. 10 minutes that can change the entire direction of your life. Overwhelm happens when the mind zooms out too far. You start thinking about everything you need to do, everything that could go wrong, everything you haven't finished, everything you fear you can't handle. And in that massive mental storm, you freeze. You stop. You shut down. But here's the breakthrough. Fear lives in the future. Power lives in the present. When you shrink your focus down to what you can do right now, fear loses its grip. Think about the biggest achievements in your life. None of them happened because you planned every detail perfectly. They happened because at one moment, just one, you took a step, you made a call, you tried, you pushed, you acted. You weren't thinking about tomorrow. You were living in the moment. That is where strength exists. That is where confidence grows. That is where transformation starts. Winning the next 10 minutes might sound small, but that's exactly why it works. Your brain doesn't panic about small things. It doesn't resist tiny actions. If you tell yourself, I need to transform my whole life today, overwhelm crushes you. But if you tell yourself, I just need to start for 10 minutes, your mind relaxes. It feels possible, achievable, safe. And once you begin, something incredible happens. Momentum appears. Momentum is the silent engine of success. It doesn't roar, it doesn't crash in. It begins quietly with one small action. Clean your desk, send that message, drink water, write the first sentence, start the workout. Once you move, even just a little, the mind shifts from hesitation to progress, and progress feels good. Progress builds confidence. Progress makes you want to keep going. Suddenly, 10 minutes turns into 20, 20 turns into an hour turns into a breakthrough, not because motivation struck you like lightning, but because you dared to begin. You don't need massive motivation, you need micro-focus. You need the discipline to win small, right now. You need the courage to tack. One step, instead of worrying about the whole path. Success is not built in giant leaps. It's built in tiny victories, stacked consistently until they become unstoppable momentum. So ask yourself, what can I win in the next 10 minutes? Not tomorrow, not next week, now. Can you breathe deeper? Can you organize something? Can you take one action you've been avoiding? Yes, you can. And that single action, small as it seems, is you reclaiming control from fear. Win the next 10 minutes, and you'll win the next hour. Win the next hour, and you'll win the day. Win the day, and tomorrow becomes something you don't fear, because you've already proven that you can handle anything that comes your way. Uncertainty is the place where most people hesitate, panic, or run backward. They see it as danger. They see it as chaos. They see it as the enemy. But the truth is, uncertainty is the greatest gift life gives you. It is the doorway to every breakthrough, every opportunity, every transformation you've ever prayed for. Nothing great ever came from certainty. Nothing powerful was ever born from comfort. Uncertainty is not the storm, it is the opening in the clouds that leads to the next level of your life. People fear uncertainty because they can't control it. But control is the biggest illusion of all. You were never meant to predict every outcome. You were meant to adapt to whatever comes and turn it into something better. That is how warriors think. That is how leaders think. That is how winners rise. They don't avoid the unknown. They walk straight into it because they understand that uncertainty is the only environment where growth is possible. Look at every dream you have. The business, the confidence, the success, the transformation. All of it lives on the other side of uncertainty. The dreams you want the most require courage you haven't used yet. They require decisions you haven't made, risks you haven't taken, and doors you haven't dared to knock on. The life you want is not hiding behind safety. It is waiting inside the unknown. The people who change the world are not the smartest or the luckiest. They're the ones who have the courage to move, even when the path isn't clear. They feel the same fear everyone else feels. But they don't let it stop them. They don't overthink. They don't wait for perfect timing. They trust themselves enough to take action and figure it out along the way. Uncertainty is not a threat, it is feedback. It's life telling you, you are stepping into a new chapter, you are expanding, you are evolving. If everything feels shaky, that's because you are not walking the same path anymore. You are stepping into a higher level of responsibility, courage, and purpose. This discomfort is not punishment, it is preparation. Greatness needs uncertainty. Without it, you would never stretch, you would never grow, you would never uncover your potential. Every hero's story begins with a moment where the path disappears and they must choose to move anyway. That's the moment that defines them. Not the victory, not the applause. The moment they stepped forward when their mind screamed for them to hide. You must realize something powerful. Uncertainty is where your future is written. It's where your courage is tested. It's where opportunities hide waiting for the person bold enough to reach for them. If your life feels uncertain right now, don't shrink, expand. Don't doubt, decide. Don't fear, lean in. This is your evolution. Because the unknown is not your enemy, it is your advantage, it is your proving ground, it is your gateway to the life you're meant to build. Step into uncertainty, and you step into your power. Your mind is the command center of your entire life. Every action begins there, every dream is born there, every fear grows there. And every breakthrough starts the moment you learn to master what happens inside your own head. You can have talent, potential, ambition, but if your mind collapses under pressure, everything else collapses with it. That is why the strongest people in the world aren't the ones with perfect lives. They're the ones who learned how to build a mind that refuses to break. A strong mind is not a mind free of fear. It's a mind trained to move with fear. It's a mind that understands the difference between pressure and paralysis. It knows when to breathe through chaos and when to push through resistance. It knows that discomfort is not a sign to run, but a sign to rise. You don't get that kind of mental strength by accident. You build it piece by piece, habit by habit, moment by moment. It begins with awareness. Most people spiral into anxiety without even realizing they're doing it. One thought becomes 10, 10 become 100. Suddenly the mind is a storm with no control. But a strong mind learns to catch the first spark before it becomes a wildfire. It says, stop, breathe, ground yourself. You step back from the rush of panic and remind yourself that thoughts are not threats. They are stories, and stories can be rewritten. Then comes discipline, the discipline to take control of your focus. You don't feed every fear. You don't chase every worry. You don't entertain every negative possibility your mind throws at you. Instead, you train yourself to return to what matters, what you can do, what you can control, what you can influence. A powerful mind directs its energy, it doesn't waste it. Simple practices create enormous strength. Deep breathing resets your nervous system. Journaling your top 3 priorities brings clarity, replacing what if this goes wrong with even if it does, I will handle it. Builds confidence. Grounding yourself in physical sensations, a hand on your chest, feet on the floor, pulls you back into the present where fear cannot dominate. These practices may seem small, but they are the bricks that build an unbreakable foundation. And here's the truth. Mental strength is not about being unshakable. It's about being recoverable. It's about knowing how to calm the storm quickly. It's about controlling your comeback speed. Weak minds stay stuck in fear. Strong minds reset and move forward. That difference alone determines who succeeds and who stays trapped. The greatest gift you can give yourself is the ability to think clearly in chaos, to breathe when your chest is tight, to stay grounded when life feels unstable, to trust yourself when the future feels uncertain. That is the mindset that wins wars, internal and external. You have that power inside you. Every struggle you've survived has already trained you. Every hardship has strengthened you. Every setback has sharpened you. You are not fragile. You are forged. Build a mind that doesn't break, and no circumstance, no person, no fear, no uncertainty will ever have power over you again. There is a moment in every person's life when everything changes. Not because the world becomes easier, not because the obstacles disappear, not because circumstances magically shift, but because something inside them awakens. That awakening is called self-trust. When you begin to trust yourself, your entire world rearranges itself around your strength instead of your fear. The path becomes clearer. Your decisions become bolder. Your steps become lighter. And tomorrow begins to look like an opportunity instead of a threat. People don't fear challenges. They fear their own inability to rise to them. They don't fear the future. They fear failing in it. They don't fear uncertainty. They fear not being worthy of the life they want. Self-doubt is one of the most destructive forces on earth. It convinces you to shrink when you should expand. It convinces you to hesitate when you should act. It convinces you that you're not ready when readiness is something you create, not something you wait for. But everything changes the moment you start trusting yourself. Think back to the times you faced something difficult. You handled it. Maybe you didn't handle it perfectly. Maybe you didn't handle it calmly. But you survived. You adapted. You learned. You pushed through. There were days you didn't think you'd make it, yet here you are, still standing. That alone is proof that you can trust yourself far more than your fear wants you to believe. When you trust yourself, fear loses its authority. It becomes background noise instead of a command. You stop asking what if I fail, and start asking what if I rise. You stop waiting for permission from the world, and start giving yourself permission to try, to grow, to begin. The mind becomes quieter, the heart becomes stronger, the path becomes possible, not because it changed, but because you did. Self-trust makes you unstoppable because it gives you freedom. Freedom to start before you are ready. Freedom to make mistakes without collapsing. Freedom to learn instead of judge yourself. Freedom to take risks that move your life forward. The people who look fearless aren't fearless. They're self-trusting. They know that no matter what happens, they will figure it out. They will adapt. They will rise. And that belief turns ordinary humans into extraordinary achievers. You don't build trust by sitting still. You build it through action. Every small step is a promise kept to yourself. Every challenge you take on, especially when you're scared, is evidence that you're capable. Every time you move despite the doubt, you strengthen your inner foundation. And that foundation becomes unshakable. Once you trust yourself, tomorrow stops feeling heavy. It stops feeling dangerous. It stops feeling like a test you might fail. Instead, it becomes a canvas. You stop waiting for guarantees and start creating opportunities. You stop hoping life will get easier and start becoming someone strong enough to handle anything. You don't need certainty. You don't need perfection. You don't need a flawless plan. You only need this truth. You can trust yourself. You've earned that trust. You've lived that proof. And once you accept that, the world opens in ways you never imagined. One of the most liberating moments in your life will be the moment you finally understand that you don't need to control the outcome. You only need to control your effort. You don't need to predict the future. You only need to dominate the present. Every ounce of anxiety you've ever carried came from believing you had to guarantee a result, as if your entire worth depended on everything turning out perfectly. But perfection is a trap. Certainty is a myth. Outcomes are outside your hands, but your actions, your decisions, your attitude, your persistence, your discipline, those are yours forever. When you detach from outcomes, fear loosens its grip. The pressure that once suffocated you disappears. You stop chasing approval, validation, and guarantees. You stop living for what will happen, and start living for who I choose to be right now. That shift, it's like breathing for the first time. It's like stepping out of a cage you never realized you built around yourself. You stop performing and start becoming. You stop surviving and start creating. People fail not because they lack ability, but because they attach their entire identity to results. When things go right, they feel worthy. When things go wrong, they feel destroyed. But the strongest people in the world, the champions, the leaders, the warriors, they know something others don't. The result is not what matters most. The effort is. The effort shapes you. The effort transforms you. The effort builds the resilience and skill that eventually creates the result. When you detach from outcomes, you become dangerous, not reckless, but unstoppable. You no longer freeze when things feel uncertain. You no longer wait for perfect timing, perfect confidence, perfect conditions. You take the leap because you finally understand that growth comes from the doing, not the achieving. You start showing up with power. You act with clarity. You move with courage. You stop avoiding failure because failure is no longer a verdict. It's data, it's experience, it's direction, it's fuel. That fear you once felt? Gone. Because now you realize that the result doesn't define you, your effort does. Imagine the freedom of waking up each day with one mission: show up as your strongest self today, not tomorrow, not next month, today. Imagine the confidence that builds when you put everything you have into the moment in front of you, when you stop wasting energy on what if, and start investing energy into what now. Detach from outcomes, and you rise above fear. Detach from outcomes, and you silence perfectionism. Detach from outcomes, and you become a creator instead of a worrier. Life becomes simpler, not easier, but clearer. You begin to understand that success is not a moment. It's a habit, a pattern, a lifestyle created by consistent presence, consistent effort, consistent courage. Outcomes will come, results will arrive, but they will no longer control your identity, your peace, or your direction. Because once you learn to dominate the present, the future has no choice but to bow to you. This is the moment to claim your life. This is the moment to stop handing over your power to fear, doubt, and uncertainty. Today is not just another day, it is the day where everything shifts. The moment where you decide that tomorrow will not intimidate you, that worry will no longer dictate your steps, that hesitation will no longer steal your time. You have survived everything life has thrown at you so far. You have overcome every doubt, every setback, every fear that tried to keep you small. And now, the future is not a threat. It is your battlefield, your canvas, your proving ground. The truth is brutal and beautiful. No one can live your life for you. No one can make your decisions. No one can face your challenges. That is your power, and it is absolute. The same hands that have held you back in fear, the same mind that has overthought and doubted, the same heart that has felt pain and hesitation, they are now the instruments of your liberation. Everything you need to conquer tomorrow already exists within you. You just need to step forward and claim it. Stop waiting, stop analyzing, stop hoping that things will get easier. Life does not wait for preparation. It rewards those who act, those who rise, those who refuse to be paralyzed by what might happen. Action is the antidote to fear. Courage is the antidote to doubt. Discipline is the antidote to chaos. You don't need certainty. You don't need perfection. You only need one decision to move now. Imagine what happens when you refuse to give tomorrow power over you. Imagine waking up knowing that fear no longer commands your thoughts, that worry no longer steals your energy, that hesitation no longer dictates your choices. That is freedom. That is mastery. That is the moment when you finally understand that the future has no authority because you have already decided who you are today. Take that first step. Take it boldly. Take it unapologetically. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to know every outcome. You only need to act, to fight, to rise, and to trust yourself. One action sparks momentum. One decision creates clarity. One step forward builds courage. And momentum, clarity, and courage together create unstoppable force. Remember this, your life is not defined by fear. It is not defined by mistakes. It is not defined by uncertainty. It is defined by the strength you summon, the steps you take, the courage you choose today. You are not a prisoner of your worries. You are a commander of your destiny. You are built for storms, for challenges, for growth, for triumph. And everything you want is waiting on the other side of fear. So stand tall, breathe deep, focus on the present, move with purpose, take that step, trust yourself, own your power. And as you do, you will realize that tomorrow is not something to fear. It is something to conquer. The future bows to those who refuse to wait, and today, this very moment, is the moment you become unstoppable. Command your tomorrow. Start now, rise, own it,